Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Old man Zhang Zhiwei, the ceiling of the martial arts world. Elderly hot blood fan, crossing the world and becoming the Holy Prince of Wudang. Also activate the system and play the role of the heavenly master at the beginning. Palm thunder, golden light curse, and even Celestial Master DegreeVarious methods of cultivating immortality were used from his hands. If Zhang Sanfeng was only mocked as a giant who was about to cultivate immortality in martial arts, and thus called a martial arts myth, then Old Master would be a giant who directly cultivated immortality in martial arts, and he would be revered as a living immortal by the martial arts world. Due to reaching a certain limit in his acting, he needed to meditate in seclusion, and 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. Unexpectedly, the 5 major sects went up to Wudang Mountain and forced Wudang disciples to death on the spot. At this point, the old Celestial Master entered the land immortal realm and broke through the barrier. Wearing a golden light spell covering the sky and protecting oneself with a thunderous palm, under the horrified gaze of sentient beings, like a fairy falling into the mortal world, one hand shattering the mountains of the 5 major sections. Old man's name, arrogant Zhang, covering the sky with one hand, doing whatever he wants. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Martial Arts Mythology, Centenary Banquet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Martial Arts Mythology, Centenary Banquet. The Ming Dynasty, a holy land of martial arts, Wudang Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a group of martial artists with swords are walking non-stop towards Wudang Mountain. Those who wake up early start going out in the middle of the night, and now they have only reached halfway up the mountain. As for those who woke up late, they were already squeezed a few miles away by the bustling crowd. At this moment, if someone stands on top of the Wudang Golden Summit and overlooks this scene, they will see a unique scene. From all directions, on every small path, there will be a continuous stream of people joining this team. From a distance, it looks like ants are moving in the dark. And their destination is only one, which is Wudang Mountain. Hey, I don't know what day it is today, how could so many people suddenly appear? At the foot of the mountain, above a rudimentary tea stand, the shopkeeper who was brewing tea wiped his sweat and his face was full of doubts. His tea stall is located at the foot of Wudang Mountain, and at this moment, the shop is filled with people from the martial arts world. But there was a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, who smiled and asked. Shop owner, you have been setting up a stall at the foot of Wudang Mountain all day. I wonder if today is Zhang Zhiwei's Centenary Banquet. Zhang Zhiwei. A Centenary Banquet. Which Zhang Zhiwei did you say? The words of the tea stall owner made several people in the martial arts world burst into laughter. Except for the one who has dominated the entire martial arts world since childhood, establishing Wudang sect, on an equal footing with Shaolin, at the age of 100, Zhang Sanfeng, who still exudes a fairy-like demeanor and awe-inspiring spirit, who else in this world can be revered as Zhang Zhiwei by the entire Jianghu people? The existence of this one has already made the entire martial arts world, for 100 years, dare not breathe loudly. If there were another one, wouldn't it be chaotic for everyone? Over there, the tea stall owner is still muttering. Since I started wearing open crotch pants, I knew there was an old Taoist on Wudang Mountain. Unexpectedly, he had lived to be 100 years old. I'll make a fool of myself, isn't this old Taoist aiming to become an immortal? These martial arts people with swords and knives couldn't help but burst into laughter as they listened to the vendor's words. You say, becoming immortal, but in this world, there are actually a few people who have the appearance of becoming immortals. Zhang Zhiwei from our Ming Dynasty is naturally one of them, and has become a mythological legend in the martial arts world. The other few, however, were from the Great Qin Dynasty, the alchemist Su Fu, the Great Han Dynasty, the pure yang sword Lv Dongbin, and the Tang Dynasty, the medicinal old Sun Simyo. This is the first time that 4 people have appeared directly on this entire continent since Yu Huangding established China and the 9 Harmony Shenzhou. It is possible to cultivate such a realm. The owner of the tea stall, who has lived for over 40 years and rarely goes out of the village, knows nothing about these things. Listening to these people from the martial arts world, he couldn't help but be stunned. The vastness of the world is not limited to this world. Since the Emperor Yu's Ding established China and the 9 harmony divine states, the power of humanity has become increasingly prosperous. However, after the death of Emperor Yu, heroes emerged from the land of Zhou, and the world was constantly under siege. Outside the territory, there are also overseas immortal islands, the vast 16 kingdoms of the western regions, the Xiongnu royal court in the desert grasslands, and even small countries such as Fusang Goguryeo, all of which have a sense of disobedience. The Great Qin, Great Han, Great Tang, and Great Ming dynasties, as well as the 5 great dynasties of the Great Song dynasty, fought for 100 years and finally established their rule through land division. With a brief respite in their military campaigns, the mountains and rivers were peaceful. From then on, the era of blooming flowers and cooking oil with fiery fire has arrived. At the same time, in the martial arts world, there is a fierce competition among heroes, with numerous experts emerging and major sects emerging one after another. Today, Zhang Sanfeng's Centenary Banquet is an invisible dispute. To extract the secret of unifying the martial arts world from Zhang Wuxia's mouth, the dragon-slaying sword. To investigate the whereabouts of the Lion King. You should know that Zhang Sanfeng is a cultivator who has always enjoyed tranquility. How could there be the principle of a group of heroes during a grand banquet? The so-called Centenary Banquet, in the eyes of Zhang Sanfeng, who had already endured life and death, was also of little importance. It's just closing the door with the younger generation, entertaining themselves, and having a meal. Who would have thought, I don't know who, that upon discovering this news, it was widely spread again unexpectedly, thousands of people from the martial arts world gathered at the foot of Wudang Mountain. To be honest, if you look at them as if they have nothing, reject their congratulations. Wudang's sect cannot do such a shameful thing. But if we really let them go up the mountain, there must be some strange people among these uninvited people. For a moment, both the upper and lower levels of Wudang were filled with worries. In the Purple Sky Palace, Zhang Sanfeng, dressed in a plain Taoist robe and with a white head and eyebrows, stood up from the cattail, his face neither sad nor happy. Zhang Sanfeng had just woken up from his meditation when a group of disciples stood beside him. With just a slight glance, it was clear in his heart. Near the bridge, at the foot of the mountain, has an unexpected guest arrived. Zhang Sanfeng's voice was as loud as a bell, not at all like the voice of a centenarian. Upon hearing these words, a person flashed by, with a face that was in his 30s or 40s. He was the eldest disciple of Wudang, Song Jinxiao. Song Jinxiao first bowed before saying, I have already confirmed that the people who came are led by Shaolin, Kunlun, Kongtong, and Ame. The rest are sects such as Haisha Gang and Xinquan sect. Except for Shaolin, we in Wudang have little interaction with other sections. These people are not kind. Song Jinxiao said, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. A few days ago, his 5th junior brother disappeared for several years and finally returned to the mountain. Everyone in Wudang was overjoyed. However, as soon as the 5th younger brother and his family entered the martial arts world of the Central Plains, the entire martial arts world began to flow with undercurrents. Even his own nephew, Zhang Yuji, has been taken by someone and has disappeared to this day. I thought Wudang would stay out of this matter, but I didn't expect these people to join Wudang today. What is their intention? Upon hearing this, Zhang Sanfeng nodded, as if he had already guessed the scene. However, after a long time, he spoke up. Far away is a guest, near the bridge, go down and prepare. But, master. Song Jinxiao was surprised and wanted to ask again, but Zhang Sanfeng waved his hand. There's no need to say more. It's a blessing or a curse. After all, Wudang cannot avoid it. With me here, there won't be any stormy weather. Moreover, even if I have any contingency, wouldn't there still be your Taigong? Zhang Sanfeng stroked his beard, his face light and indifferent to the fierce attacks from several major sections. As soon as everyone heard this, their eyes immediately lit up. Yeah, at this time, how could you forget about Taigong, who had been in seclusion for many years? Outsiders only know that Wudang has established a royal family and is proud of the others. With its own strength, it has suppressed the entire martial arts world, but I don't know, there is still one in Wudang who is even older than his master and has a higher cultivation level. Wudang Taigong, Zhang Zhiwei. P.S. Due to some force majeure factors, some names have been changed, so it's good for everyone to know. Chapter 2. 5 Gates Forcing the Palace, The Truth of the Past. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. 5 Gates Forcing the Palace, The Truth of the Past. Shaolin 3 divine monks, Kong Wen, Kong Ji, Kong Xing, Kunlun Hidachong, these are contemporaries of Zhang Sanfeng who were first welcomed into the Zhenwu Hall. The 5 elders of Kong Tong, although named with an old character, have a shorter seniority and are received by Song Jinxiao. As for Ame, the extermination abbess had never personally arrived, so she asked the Yin 6 heroes to entertain him. By the time the remaining small sects came in, the huge Xixiao palace was already too big to sit down. Helpless, everyone could only stand at the door, picking up a few large bluestones and sitting together. The disciples of the sect stood aside. Those who come up later may even have nowhere to stand, so they can only stretch their heads and join in the fun. Everyone sat down, looking at each other with ghosts in their hearts, exchanging colors. In the backyard, Zhang Xixia and Zhang Songhai looked at the scene in the front hall all day and were extremely angry. This group of people, apart from the Shaolin and Ame sects, are still decent and have brought some birthday gifts. The remaining disciples of several sects, with bulging waists, actually hide their weapons. The pleasantries and congratulatory messages from the people in the front hall were heard in the ears of several people in Wudang, which were extremely harsh. Zhang Songhai pulled Zhang Wuxia over and gave a glance to the other brothers. In no time, the 7 heroes gathered together, their faces deep in thought. Lao Si, do you see anything? Song Jinxiao frowned and asked. Zhang Xixia and Zhang Songhai are the most clever among the 7 of them. These people come together, ostensibly to congratulate their master on his birthday, but in reality, they want to hold him accountable. If you want the Longmen Escort Agency's murder case, you have to count it on Lao Wu. Saying it's a matter of questioning, but in reality, I still want to force the Lion King's whereabouts in order to find the Dragon Killer Blade and satisfy my own desires. As Zhang Songhai spoke, he pondered over his future plans. If Shaolin and Ame don't take action, only those shrimp soldiers and crab generals will remain. The 7 heroes of Wudang don't take it seriously, let alone the presence of the Grand Master. But if it's dark outside, it's hard to see how many people there are. If we take the lead in challenging, it's difficult for a few people to cope. Zhang Xixia and Zhang Songhai thought for a while, then revealed their plan, and everyone nodded repeatedly. But Zhang Wuxia, who was involved, looked around with a worried expression and an absent-minded expression. In his ears, there was a faint, as if he heard a voice of jealousy, "Daddy, Daddy. Help me." Seeing Zhang Wuxia's haggard appearance, everyone knew from the bottom of their hearts that it was probably due to Yuji's disappearance, which brought him too much pressure. Since this family set foot on the land of the Central Plains martial arts world, they have been subjected to endless harassment, and even Yuji has been abducted. Upon seeing this, Yu Daisher lay on the hospital bed, comforting him with a warm voice. "Fifth brother, don't worry. When this matter comes up, let's personally go find Taigong. With Taigong's ability, we can definitely find Yuji's nephew." Yu Daisher confidently said that although he was already disabled, he had not lost any fighting spirit. The reason is the existence of Wudang Taigong. Nowadays, Taigong has been in seclusion for decades, and counting his days, he is also about to leave the mountains. Whether it's the disability on Yu Daisher or the whereabouts of Ji, as long as Taigong goes out of the mountain, everything is not a problem. Upon hearing Yu Daishi's comfort, Zhang Wuxia's heart was also slightly calm. Just as he was about to speak, Yin Susu behind him urgently asked. Yu Sangu, Taigong. Does he really have such a divine plan? These 7 people, planning in the inner courtyard of Wudang, naturally did not avoid outsiders, but their voices attracted Yin Susu. Yin Susu was also eager to save his son. When he heard Yu Daishi's words, he urgently asked, his tone full of hope. 5th younger sister, you don't have to worry. Our Taigong usually lives in seclusion, but when it comes to cultivation, even his master can't compare to Taigong. The crowd comforted and spoke of this Taigong with full confidence. But at this moment, Yu Daishi's expression suddenly changed, and a strange light shone in his eyes. It was both pain and resentment, as if he remembered a lifelong grudge. He extended his finger, trembling and pointing at Yin Susu, and said in a deep voice, 5th younger sister, is that you? That person back then was you. Everyone was unaware of the reason, and their eyes turned towards Yin Susu, who immediately turned pale upon hearing Yu Daishi's words. 10 years ago, Yin Susu naturally understood in his heart that although Yu Daishi's disability was not caused by himself, it was also closely related to him. Back in the day, Yu Daishi got the dragon-killing sword. In order to resolve the bloody conflict in the martial arts world, he was supposed to bring it to Wudang Mountain and have the crown prince handle it on his behalf. However, when traveling to the Qiantang area, he was injured by a hidden weapon and scammed away with the dragon-killer blade. Subsequently, the Longmen Escort Agency of Shaolin lay disciples received a commission to escort Yu Daishi back to Wudang, but on the way, he was injured by an expert and his legs were directly injured. And the person behind him who uses hidden weapons is Yin Susu. Seeing Yin Susu's face change greatly, the room remained silent for a moment, with only a few people's heartbeat making a thud. For a long time, Yin Susu let out a sigh and took a step forward. What should come, always will come. I have already changed my voice in my daily life, just to not want to be exposed, but to my surprise, when I heard about Yuji just now, in a state of urgency, I spoke in front of Yu Daishi in my original voice and was still discovered by him. 3rd brother, I entrusted the Longmen Escort Agency to send you to Wudang back then. That day in the Qiantang River, those who hid in the cabin and stabbed you with mosquito whiskers were all me. The person who later stabbed you with 7 stars in his palm and deceived you with the dragon-slaying sword in your hand is my own brother, King Yinyi. Upon hearing these words, everyone's expressions varied and they were stunned on the spot, unsure of what to do. But there was a hint of sadness and anger in the dim eyes of the 5 heroes, who stumbled back a few steps and almost fell to the ground. Su, why didn't you mention these things earlier? Yin Susu lowered his eyebrows and said, how can I tell you? I hurt your 3rd brother back then, and he was the culprit on his way back to Wudang Mountain. It was your wife. How dare I say that? Zhang Wuxia had a mournful and painful expression, with a buzzing sound in his ears, as if he had heard the voice of a child who was afraid of him. He looked around, but there was no one in sight. Thinking of my own wife again, she was the culprit who caused my 3rd brother trouble. Suddenly, my head was pounding with pain. Upon seeing this, Yin Susu drew his sword, turned the handle upside down, and handed it to Zhang Wuxia. Brother Wu, we have been husband and wife for 10 years, and our relationship is deep. I died without complaint today. I hope you can kill me with one sword, fulfilling your righteousness as the 7 heroes of Wudang. Zhang Wuxia took the sword and was about to hand it out, stabbing his wife's chest. However, in an instant, his wife had been gentle, considerate, and affectionate towards him for 10 years, and all kinds of benefits flooded into her heart. How could this sword be stabbed? He was stunned for a moment, then suddenly shouted and ran towards the Zhenwu Hall. P.S. Due to some force majeure factors, some names have been changed, so it's good for everyone to know. Chapter 3. Wudang Disciples' Self-Determination, Taigong Zhiwei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Suishan's self-determination, Taigong's way. When Zhang Wuxia rushed to the Zhenwu Hall, he heard that the Shaolin three divine monks were debating with Zhang Sanfeng. What they are discussing is the tragic incident at the Longmen Escort Agency back then. The Longmen Escort Agency was founded by a layman disciple of Shaolin. When all the sects were destroyed, it caused a sensation in the martial arts world. Nowadays, all kinds of clues and signs point to Zhang Wuxia of Wudang. How can Shaolin let go of this evil spirit? Zhang Wuxia rushed in from the backyard and, facing the pressure from the martial arts world, felt disheartened and immediately clenched his fists at everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the centenary of our family and teacher's birthday. We are grateful for your kind visit, and everyone in Wudang is extremely grateful. Today is a great day for my family and master. When it comes to these grudges and grievances in the martial arts world, it may be unclear. Everyone, when this matter comes up, Suishan will definitely reveal it one by one. Zhang Wuxia looked around at the heroes of the martial arts world, and then glanced at the 100-year-old master who was sitting on the main seat. He gritted his teeth and said. Upon hearing this, everyone looked at each other, but after a moment, a Taoist flashed by from the Kunlun sect. Zhang Wuxia, the wise do not speak in secret. Today we are here, first to congratulate Zhang Zhenren on his birthday, and second to investigate the whereabouts of the evil thief, the Lion King. If you say these few words, it will make a big impact on us. In the future, how can we establish ourselves in the martial arts world? Zhang Wuxia turned his head to take a look, but it was Ziwazi from the Kunlun sect, who looked at Zhang Wuxia with an angry expression on his face. The Lion King used to do many evil deeds, but he never had any grudges with the Kunlun sect. Now that this Ziwazi has jumped out, it is ill-intentioned. In fact, among the people present in the martial arts world, how many of them have a grudge against the Lion King? It's just because of the dragon-slaying sword in the Lion King's hand. The act of slaying a dragon is a great command to the heroes. After the Lion King seized the dragon-slaying sword, he retired overseas. For over a decade, no one in the martial arts world has found their whereabouts. Now that Zhang Wuxia knows the whereabouts of the Lion King, how can the people in the martial arts world be willing to let go? Upon hearing these words, Zhang Wuxia's face was filled with a sense of melancholy. The Lion King is his sworn brother, and he claims to be righteous, so he naturally won't reveal the whereabouts of his sworn brother. Starting from my first step into the martial arts world of the Central Plains, I don't know how much trouble I have suffered because of this incident. Now, my own child Zhang Yuji was also abducted by thieves due to this incident, and his whereabouts are unknown. Half of the people in the martial arts world chose their master's centenary banquet and launched a rebellion together, causing shame in Wudang. In addition, the third brother's disability is actually related to his wife Su Su. All of this, like a heavy burden, weighed heavily on his own shoulders, making him almost breathless. Everyone is pushing each other fiercely. Do you really think of me as Wudang? Is it just a matter of mud? Today is the centenary banquet of our family and teachers. Everyone is carrying weapons. What do you want to do? Zhang Wuxia's eyes were covered with a layer of blood red, and he was almost in a state of madness. Everyone was about to refute, but Zhang Wuxia reached out and a cold light flashed through the void, but it flew straight towards Ziwazi's waist, shooting away. Bang! A crisp sound rang out, and the few of them fixed their eyes. However, Ziwazi's waist fell with a sword, hitting the ground and making a sound. For a moment, everyone was embarrassed and speechless. If they come up and take the lead, even if they are willing to fight to the death with everyone in Wudang, and if they want to catch Zhang Wuxia and force him to question, at this point, the plan may have already succeeded. Unfortunately, Wudang's reputation is there. No matter which family or faction of people, they dare not be such a rising star and miss this opportunity for nothing, but it caused Zhang Wuxia to tear apart his face, leaving everyone disheartened. At this moment, Zhang Sanfeng didn't know what had happened in the backyard. Seeing Zhang Wuxia's expression changing, he pretended to be angry and rebuked him, then stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I miss you so much and speak without any words. Please forgive me." Upon hearing these words, the Kongji of Shaolin took a step forward and said, "Zhang Wuxia misses his beloved son like crazy. Does the Lion King harm so many people that he has no parents, wife, or children?" Kongji was thin and weak, but his words sounded like a bell, only causing a buzzing sound in the ears of everyone in the hall. Zhang Wuxia was even more restless, with no words to answer. The abbot Kongwen said to Zhang Sanfeng, "Zhang Zhenren, please show me how to conclude today's matter." Zhang Sanfeng said, "Although I am not as skilled as him, I dare not deceive my master. I dare not deceive the 3 Shaolin monks. He did not harm the lives of the Longmen Escort Agency and the disciples of your sect. He refused to reveal the whereabouts of the Lion King." Kongji sneered and said, "But someone saw Zhang Wuxia kill my disciples with their own eyes. Would Wudang disciples dare not lie, and Shaolin disciples would lie?" As they spoke, 3 more people in Shaolin stood up, but upon seeing them, they were 3 high-ranking monks of the Yuan generation. In just a few words and 2 sentences, he spoke out about the past and pointed his finger directly at Zhang Wuxia. At this moment, Zhang Wuxia had a hard time distinguishing his words. It wasn't him who hurt people back then, but it was his wife Su Su. Now that they have become husband and wife, this matter requires both of them to bear the responsibility together. Zhang Wuxia gave a resounding smile and said, "You don't need to say much. With this aggressive pressure, if my crown prince goes out of the mountains in the future, you may not have a good time." At this glance, everyone's expressions varied. The younger generation, such as Abbess Jingxian of Amei and even the 5 elders of Kongtong, frowned slightly and looked puzzled. As for those who came along, the Haisha gang and others looked even more puzzled. Everyone in the world only knows that there is a Zhang Sanfeng in Wudang, who is 100 years old and surpasses the others. When did another Grand Duke appear in Wudang? When everyone was surprised, the person from Kunlun, including He Daoran and even the 3 members of Shaolin, looked uncertain and almost fell from their chairs. "What? You said, Wudang Taigong is still alive?" Their generation, from the beginning of practicing martial arts, knew about the reputation of Zhang Zhiwei, the Grand Duke of Wudang. He had already spread throughout the entire martial arts world back then. Now, they have grown from childhood to a generation of great masters, and have also become martial arts masters. And surprisingly, Zhang Zhiwei, the Grand Duke of Wudang, has not died yet. The crowd was in shock and uncertainty, and a few people had already developed a sense of retreat. At this moment, Zhang Wuxia saw a word that shook everyone, but he walked into the crowd, turned around, and kowtowed to Zhang Sanfeng. "Master, I have made a big mistake and it is irreparable. I only ask for one thing from you. The only son of the disciple, Zhang Yuji, has been kidnapped by a traitor and his life and death are unpredictable. I hope his mentor can save him from the clutches and raise him to adulthood." Speak up. While everyone was still in shock and doubt, Zhang Wuxia swung his sword horizontally and slashed it directly in his neck, splattering blood and dying instantly. P.S. Due to some force majeure factors, some names have been changed, so it's good for everyone to know. Chapter 4. Martyrdom. Former Immortal Gods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Su Su Martyr's Love, Former Immortal Gods. Zhang Wuxia's blood spilled on the spot, causing everyone to be amazed and uncertain. However, Zhang Sanfeng stepped on the void and his body was full of energy. Everyone felt that a strong force was crushing them all around, and their bodies were directly shaken away. At this moment, Zhang Sanfeng extended a finger and pressed it between Zhang Wuxia's neck. In an instant, there was a dimness in his eyes. "Fifth brother. Fifth brother. Tsuishan." In the backyard, everyone exclaimed in shock and rushed forward. It was precisely because of this scene that they felt heartbroken. Previously, Zhang Wuxia's expression in the backyard was already off, and everyone thought he had been hit and his mood was low, but never expected that Zhang Wuxia would do such a fierce thing. They were one step behind Zhang Wuxia, but when they rushed over, they could only watch helplessly as Zhang Wuxia died in front of them. At this moment, even at the age of 100, Zhang Sanfeng, with a fair head and white eyebrows, was also spreading his beard and hair, and his whole body was full of anger. How many people can accept a situation where their favorite disciple died in front of them at their centenary banquet? Zhang Sanfeng's eyes widened in anger and he looked around for a week. Just as he was about to make a fuss, a faint cry suddenly came from his ear. In that side hall, several cries of children suddenly appeared. Zhang Sanfeng's mind twitched, his hands clasped together, and he slammed straight towards the side hall. Bang! There was only a muffled sound, and Zhang Sanfeng clapped his hand. In the side hall, there was a man wearing a grassland military uniform, vomiting blood incessantly. At the same time, in the side hall, Zhang Yuji cried and ran towards the body of Zhang Wuxia. Originally, Zhang Yuji had always been controlled by the man in the grassland military uniform, hiding in the side hall. Just now, I was actually watching helplessly as my father died in front of me. Yuji stumbled over and threw himself directly into Yin Su-su's arms, crying, "Mom, why did they force Dad to death? Who forced Dad to death?" At this moment, Yin Su-su's heart was as if it were dead and disheartened. Her husband had died suddenly, and her ability was heartbroken. However, when her beloved son returned to her side, she reluctantly let out a few startled sounds and replied, "You have taboos. You can see clearly the faces of everyone here. It was he who went up the mountain together to force your father to death." Zhang Yuji's small eyes slowly scanned from left to right. Although he was young, everyone's gaze touched his, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. Yin Su-su said, "You have taboos. Promise your mother a word." Yuji said, "Mom, you tell me." Yin Su-su said, "After your Taigong leaves the mountain in seclusion, I will tell you the faces and identities of these people, and ask Taigong to avenge your father. Everyone present cannot be let go." After hearing her cold words, everyone couldn't help but feel a chill on their backs. The people of the martial arts world will settle their grudges. Today, Zhang Wuxia was forced to die by them on Wudang Mountain, which is the result of forming a bond. If Zhang Yuji had achieved some success in martial arts in his later years, he would have killed everyone present in such a grudge against his father. As everyone listened to these words, a few ruthless people quietly touched the hidden weapon in their waist, hoping to kill Zhang Yuji on the spot and eliminate future troubles. But on second thought, how could the people of Wudang, with their chivalrous names outside, be so easy to deal with? Moreover, Zhang Zhenren has lost his beloved disciple and is currently on the brink of rampage, full of killing intent. With this person here, he may not be able to succeed. What's even more despairing is that on Wudang Mountain, besides Zhang Sanfeng, there is actually a Grand Duke. Listening to the astonishment in the words of the older generation, this Wudang Grand Duke is even more terrifying than Zhang Zhenren. Kong Wen, Kong Ji, and Kong Xing looked at the tragic situation in front of them and felt uneasy. This is not that they eat fast and chant Buddha, not to see blood. In fact, there are not 1,000 people in the martial arts world who died under their command, but also 800. But those are all damn people. They are all outsiders, they are all members of the demon cult. And this time, it was Zhang Wuxia from Wudang who died. If the Grand Duke of Wudang finds out about this matter, the entire Shaolin would probably be completely overturned. Others may not know, but the three of them have a clear understanding of Zhang Zhiwei, the Grand Duke of Wudang. Since they went to Shaolin and started practicing martial arts with horse steps for the first time, the first seat of the Dharma Hall has been unforgettable for Zhang Zhiwei, saying that they must respect the Grand Duke of Wudang. In those years, when they listened to Zhang Zhiwei's name, their ears were going to cocoon. Back then, the demonic cult caused chaos, and he led Zhang Sanfeng to kill the entire demonic sect, even chasing and killing them on the grasslands, the Xiongnu royal court. His golden light curse is the most powerful horizontal practice technique in the world. In the face of this golden light curse, there is no qualification to compare the strongest martial arts of Shaolin, such as the diamond that does not damage the body, the easy muscle-forging bone chapter, and even the strongest ones. When Zhang Sanfeng first founded Wudang, all the heroes in the world rose up to attack him, and Shaolin also secretly made efforts behind the scenes to remove this eyesore. But that time, the top 300 experts in the martial arts world joined forces with Wudang and didn't even have a chance to make a move. A total of 300 people, including those with extraordinary talents and fame, only had a face-to-face encounter with Zhang Zhiwei. The whole army is destroyed. Zhang Zhiwei even used one move and swept the entire Jianghu. From then on, perhaps the expert was lonely, feeling the boredom of the conflicts in the martial arts world. Zhang Zhiwei threw everything to Zhang Sanfeng and kept himself in seclusion. In earlier years, I could occasionally hear some news, but in the past 20 years, there has been no news of Zhang Zhiwei in the martial arts world. The older generation, dead and injured, and only a few people who know the details, dare not even mention Zhang Zhiwei's name. That is to say, Kongwen, who was still a junior back then, knew that there was once such a number one figure in this world. And the changes of the people in the martial arts world, generation after generation, are also unknown to no one. The title of Wudang Taigong in Zhang Zhiwei. If Zhang Sanfeng is recognized as a martial arts myth by the martial arts world, then Zhang Zhiwei is the martial arts immortal god. If Zhang Zhiwei really didn't die, and with his temperament, he knew that Wudang disciples were forced to this extent, the martial arts world is in danger. Mother. I don't want revenge, I want my dad to come back to life. Yuji shouted. Upon hearing this, Yin Susu grabbed Zhang Yuji into his arms. You have taboos. If your father dies and someone dies, they won't be able to survive. And remember, when you grow up, be wary of beautiful women. The more beautiful a woman is, the more she will deceive people. After speaking, Yin Susu's hands slowly fell off Zhang Yuji's shoulders. Everyone was surprised and quickly took a step forward, sniffing and looking surprised. It turned out that just now, when Yin Susu held Zhang Yuji in his arms, he stabbed a broken blade directly into his heart. At this point, he has already died. P.S. Due to some force majeure factors, some names have been changed, so it's good for everyone to know. Chapter 5. Amidst the sky of golden light, we seek death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Amidst the sky of golden light, we seek death. Both parents died in front of him, and Zhang Yuji cried uncontrollably. The Wudang crowd also turned red in their eyes, some with violent personalities already wielding swords and glaring angrily at them. With just one word from Zhang Sanfeng, everyone in Wudang will immediately transform into killing beasts. Dad, Mom. Wake up. You have taboos, you won't make you angry anymore. At this young age, Zhang Yuji only knew that his heart was filled with sorrow and he couldn't help but cry. In the midst of Zhang Yuji's crying, the heroes of the martial arts world also felt a chill and anxiety in their hearts. What they are afraid of is not a little doll, but the Wudang behind the doll, Zhang Sanfeng and Zhang Zhiwei. Before everyone went to Wudang, they were already prepared to break ties with Wudang, but when things really took this step, they realized that they didn't even have the courage to pull out their weapons. Under the gaze of only a few people in Wudang, countless people seemed to be trapped in an encirclement. Amitabha Buddha, the disaster caused today is not what we had hoped for. Zhang Zhenren, a disciple of Shaolin, is here to apologize to Wudang. After thinking for a moment, Kongwen stood up and bowed to Zhang Sanfeng, clasping hands. This time, Zhang Sanfeng did not reciprocate, just looked coldly at everyone. He knew that if there were taboo children who were just ordinary children, if such a thing happened today, it might be because everyone was in a hurry to silence them, rather than apologize. Moreover, the main culprit for forcing Suishan to death this time is these Shaolin people. Upon hearing this, Kong gritted his teeth and knew that there might not be any good fruit to eat between Shaolin and Wudang in the future. If it were only Zhang Sanfeng, he would still be able to grit his neck and compete with Wudang for power. However, since Zhang Zhiwei did not die, let alone him, he brought the entire Shaolin and all the martial monks together. I'm afraid it's not even a match for Zhang Zhiwei alone. Zhang Zhenren, we have already admitted our mistake. What do you want to do? At this moment, there was a blank expression on his face, jumping out. Not only was there no remorse on his face, but he also spoke out accusation. This incident was not intentional by us, it was Zhang Wuxia who couldn't bear it and committed suicide, it has nothing to do with us. Exactly. Maybe it was the 5 heroes who were bewitched by the witch and lost their minds. One person spoke out, and everyone reacted, but they all started to criticize loudly. It seems that as long as their voices are loud enough, it means their words are absolutely correct. Zhang Wuxia married the fairy girl of the Heavenly Eagle sect, and then became sworn brothers to the evil thief Xie Sun. I don't think he's a good person either. He deserves more than he deserves. One slander after another spread to the ears of everyone in Wudang. Rao is Zhang Sanfeng, who has been cultivating for 100 years and has not been favored or humiliated. In this situation, a flame has also risen in his heart. Zhang Sanfeng is like this. How can Zhang Yuji, who is 10 years old, endure the loss of his parents? Immediately, he stood up and stood in front of everyone. He tilted his neck and loudly retorted, "You're not right. My dad, he's not that kind of person. My dad is the best person in the world." Unfortunately, how many voices a child can make, and his words are quickly drowned out in the voices of everyone. Even if a few people hear it, they won't care about this little doll's words. Everyone's gaze was only fixed on Zhang Sanfeng and the second-generation disciples of Wudang. If there is a fight later, these people will be their biggest enemies. Zhang Yuji's voice was ignored by everyone, and his heart was filled with shame and anger. Coupled with the loss of his parents, he couldn't help but cry. Bad guys, you're all bad guys. Dad, Mom, they bully me, and they still want to scold you. Hurry up and teach them a lesson. If you don't want others to bully you, don't let them scold you. Zhang Yuji cried for a while, but when he saw his parents lying on the ground, their bodies were icy cold, and the bright red blood caught his eye, but there was no reaction at all. In his heart, he understood something, understood what true death is at this moment. I suddenly remembered the words my mother had said at the last moment. You have taboos. You can see clearly the faces of everyone here. It was he who went up the mountain together to force your father to death. After your Taigong leaves the mountain in seclusion, I will tell you the faces and identities of these people, and ask Taigong to avenge your father. Taigong. Taigong. At this moment, Zhang Yuji still doesn't know who Taigong is and what ability he has to avenge his father. But what my mother said must not be wrong. Now, everyone is bullying themselves, and I can only go find Taigong. Zhang Yuji glanced at the crowd a few times, but ran to the door and looked at the towering mountains in Wudang Mountain, crying and shouting, Taigong, where are you? The cries of a child echoed instantly on Wudang Mountain. The mountain warriors, upon hearing this, were slightly stunned. At this moment, they dared not bark recklessly and touched their weapons around their waist. For a moment, the wind and sound were trembling with fear. The Wudang crowd couldn't help but sneer at the movements of the heroes, but at this moment, they had no movement. Those familiar with Taigong know that his temper is not as good as his master's. It's okay for these people not to wield weapons. Taigong will only punish them and won't harm their lives, but if one dares to challenge Taigong once they touch a weapon, then these people will really become dead. Of course, it's impossible for Wudang heroes to talk to them about this kind of thing. They were eager, and in the anger of the Grand Duke, they directly killed these people. Wudang crowd stood next to Zhang Yuji and comforted him one after another. For a long time, there was silence on Wudang Mountain, but there was no sound at all. The wind blows through the leaves, making a rustling sound. Everyone waited, but after waiting, there was still half a burning incense stick. The entire Wudang remained motionless. At this point, some people began to wonder. As we all know, Zhang Zhiwei from Wudang is already 100 years old, which is almost reaching the limit of humanity. What kind of Wudang Taigong is older than Zhang Zhiwei in terms of seniority? If he were alive, at least he would be 103 years old, right? Can humans really live this long? Immediately, someone with a lively mind sneered and spoke up. What Wudang Taigong? It's just scary to say. Little doll, don't howl anymore. Your grandfather, I'm afraid he's dead. This sound made everyone's faces slightly improve, and what this person said was reasonable. How could anyone live such a long time in this world? Moreover, if one really lives for such a long time, why hasn't anyone appeared? Everyone laughed heartily. Just as they were about to add more ridicule, suddenly a golden light flashed through the depths of the jungle. In a moment, the golden light spread throughout the entire world. On Wudang Mountain, like the scorching sun falling. In the mountains and wilderness, birds fluttered up and circled high in the air, as if sensing some ominous aura. The golden light dissipated, and every plant and tree in Wudang Mountain was dyed with a thin layer of golden light. The heroes of the martial arts world, bathed in this golden light, with their backs pierced by the light, their breath stagnant, and their hearts amazed. The disrespectful words in his mouth were suddenly swallowed back, his face turning pale as he looked towards the wilderness of Wudang. At this moment, a roar of anger echoed through the sky. Wait, you're looking for death. P.S. Due to some force majeure factors, some names have been changed, so it's good for everyone to know. Chapter 6. Did the Heavenly Master not die? Full field vibration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Did Zhang Zhiwei not die? Full field vibration. The golden light rises suddenly, like the sun rising in the east. Inside and outside the front hall, everything is bright and bright. Everyone instinctively closed their eyes and dared not open them again. Until the golden light disappears. The whole front hall didn't react. What is the situation? The Immortal's descent. That's too exaggerated, isn't it? I heard that the 18 dragon subduing palms of Beishao Peak are at most shrouded in golden light, and then each palm is a real dragon. With all their strength, they are just 18 golden dragons circling around their bodies. That would already be a mysterious skill. But that moment just now was filled with golden light, more terrifying than any 18 golden dragons. The Shaolin monk Master Kongji's face was full of shock, and the once solemn face of the Baoxian was already full of shock. To be honest. Who among those present has seen such a terrifying sight? Not in Shaolin, not in Amidst, not in Kunlun. Just look at the entire martial arts world, and even the whole world. Besides dreaming, who dares to say they have seen such a miracle with their own eyes? For a moment, most people were like a dream. They all doubted whether they were dizzy at that moment. But blurred vision, can so many people have blurred vision together? Master Kong Wen, what's wrong with you? Suddenly, someone exclaimed in surprise. I only saw Master Kong Wen's hands trembling like magic, constantly pinching the prayer beads in his hands. Seems to exert immense force. That's the prayer beads that have been rolled for countless years. Unexpectedly, it exploded one by one under the fingers of Master Kong Wen. Is he nervous? Still scared by something? Impossible, this can't be true. An older generation of experts was shocked to see the highly respected Master Kong Wen's appearance. You can't really be that unreasonable old guy. Abbess Jingxian of Amidst is the most calm. Because Mount Amidst has always been aligned with Wudang. Its founder, Guoxiang, had a story with the founder of Wudang, Zhang Sanfeng. Although even the so-called Holy Duke once made a move, it did not bring Zhang Sanfeng and Guoxiang back together. But the friendship between the two factions remains unchanged. It can be said that besides Wudang disciples, there were only her disciples from Amidst sect present, and she was not afraid of the Saint Taigong. If I'm not mistaken, it should be Zhang Tianchu's golden light curse. Many older generation experts took a deep breath. If it's really the golden light curse, then it must be that old guy. You're still an old guy, aren't you afraid of death? Hurry up and change your name to Zhang Tianchu. No, it's safe to call Senior Zhang. That's right, by this time, Zhang Zhiwei should have lived to be 130 years old. You've been our senior for a long time. The Haisha faction, the Giant Whale faction, and other sects have heard discussions from the older generation. I widened my eyes directly. 130 years old, are you joking? Zhang Sanfeng didn't rely on any external objects. He lived for 100 years and was enough to shake the world. That Saint Taigong lived for 130 years. What kind of monsters are these? I dare believe it if I say it's a fairy, but if I say it's a person who has lived for over 130 years, who dares to believe it? Most people live to the age of 50 or 60, which is considered longevity, and 70 or 80 is considered the pinnacle of life. Therefore, anyone who hears that someone has lived for over 130 years will feel incredulous. If that kind of person really exists, then they are living immortals. And at this moment, Kunlun Iron Chi Mr. He Taichung suddenly widened his eyes. Impossible, how could that old guy still be alive? Who can stay in seclusion for more than 20 years at once? It's just a stone that will be blown away by the wind for 20 years if left on the mountaintop. How could Zhang Zhiwei possibly reach that level? 20 years without appearing in the martial arts world. There is only one possibility, besides being dead, that is death. Isn't it possible to fake a corpse and come out? I'm still alive after 20 years of seclusion. Who believes this kind of nonsense? However, He Taichung just finished speaking. I saw Shaolin Master Kongwen open his eyes. It is evident that all the prayer beads in his hand have shattered, and the white powder in his hand is shattered. If I'm not mistaken, it's undoubtedly the golden light curse. Zhang Zhiwei didn't die. And judging from the newly emerged golden light curse, its strength is probably even more terrifying than 20 years ago. Hear this sentence. The old woman was so frightened that she took a deep breath, as if she had thought of something, and her whole body trembled. Then, starting from the old woman, everyone around her smelled a foul odor. Surprisingly, I was scared out of control. The young generation of Shenquan sect and Haisha sect were immediately shocked. What kind of person is the Holy Duke of Wudang? What have you ever done before? How could it scare a respected old man into this appearance? That's an old senior from Kunlun Mountain. If it's Kunlun Mountain, there's no need to make a big fuss. An older generation of experts looked at the frightened and stunned old woman and let out a deep sigh. When that old man ran into Kunlun Mountain to reason without reason before, he almost wiped out the entire Kunlun Mountain. To be honest, that old guy is usually quite easy to talk to, but he shouldn't be provoked. Countless young experts were directly shocked. Kunlun sect. That is a major sect that can be compared to Wudang anime. It is a renowned presence in the martial arts world. Was it almost destroyed by someone once? How terrifying is that person really? Grandmaster. Or a great master. Or higher. Chapter 7. Legend of the Past. Cheng, have you become an immortal? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Legend of the Past. Cheng, have you become a fairy? There are not many forces in the world that can destroy Kunlun. After all, it is a top-notch presence in the martial arts world. It is not the Tianxia Society, the legendary Ghost Valley sect, or even the unknown Tian men that can defeat Kunlun. And wanting to compete with the entire Kunlun sect alone is simply a pipe dream. How could everyone in the martial arts world be easily destroyed? But look at Mr. Tai Chin He Changchong, as well as the expressions of the older generation of experts present and several experts from Kunlun. It seems to be true. This makes one take a deep breath. If this is true, then why haven't we ever heard of Zhang Zhiwei? Yes, such existence should not be unknown to anyone. The older generation spoke up. Because 20 or 30 years ago, he was the pinnacle of martial arts and also a taboo in the martial arts world, something that no one dared to mention again. And he is too unattainable, so we can only pretend to forget. I want time to bury him. Such a character, besides time, is probably unmatched. Perhaps there are still people, but at least in our understanding, this martial arts world is the one under Zhang Zhiwei. I won't mention it, it's just that there is always fear in my heart. The 5 elders of Kongtong sighed. Abbess Jingxian shook her head. Although Amei and Wudang have no grudges or grievances, she also has an excellent relationship with the eccentric Saint Taigong. But with the presence of the Holy Duke, everyone will eventually be unable to catch their breath. Master Kongwen also shouted the Buddha's name and let out a long sigh. But to my surprise, the person who thought they should have died a long time ago is now about to reappear in the world. Countless people present remain silent. Many young masters only now realize that there is still such a person in the martial arts world. For a moment, the entire front hall was silent. It took a long time for the younger generation to dare to speak up. That senior, what level do you need to reach now? Have you already surpassed the great master? Cheng. Cheng. Become a celestial being. The determination of the realm of this world. It is roughly divided into several layers. Third rate, second rate, first class, acquired, innate, master, great master. Heaven and earth. At the level of a master, there are beings such as Shaolin eminent monk Kong Ji and Wudang 7 heroes, who have a considerable reputation and status in the martial arts world. And Shaolin Master Kong Wen, who is worthy of stepping on the realm of a great master, is such an existence. As for the truly famous masters, they are basically top-notch masters such as the protagonists of novels who are well-known in the world. As for the descendants of the great master, it is the legendary realm of heaven and humanity. It's all legends, so one can imagine how difficult it is to reach heaven and humanity. 100 years. 1,000 years. It is not necessarily possible to produce a master at the level of heaven and humanity. If there is, it is enough to suppress an era. So, it seems really possible. Yeah, according to several senior colleagues, Zhang Zhiwei is already incredibly strong. Perhaps he is truly a master of heaven and humanity. If we could see the heavenly and human masters, wouldn't that be a great fortune in life? Someone suddenly became excited. Heavenly and human experts. Meeting once can make you boast for a lifetime. However, even if someone snorts coldly, what do we do for a lifetime of boasting? Threatening Wudang. I'll keep boasting for a lifetime, and just being able to live back is enough. If it's the pinnacle of the great master's expertise, then it's easy to say. When Master Kongwen starts fighting, we may still find an opportunity to run. But if it were heaven and earth, there wouldn't even be a chance to run. This bowl of cold water poured down, and everyone's heart was cold. But on the other hand, what realm has that reached? Master Kongwen shook his head. Other older generation experts are also silent. It's not that I don't know, but I dare not say. However. Also at this moment. Only Abbess Jingxian looked at the young generation who didn't know what to say. Speak with a deep voice. 20 years ago, he was already a celestial being. In one sentence, like thunder exploding from the sky. I thought the scene before me was the scene of the Saint Duke stepping into heaven and humanity. But I didn't expect it. 20 years ago. He was a celestial being. The entire front hall seemed as if it had been bombed by thunder, and it was completely silent. Almost no one dared to make a sound, almost as if suffocating. Visible. The entire front hall is like a wooden sculpture made of clay. Only Zhang Zhiwei, who didn't know what the great master and the heavenly man were, stared wide-eyed at the front hall door. Although he is still young. But based on the conversations of those around me, I vaguely guessed where the source of the golden light had just come from. It is highly likely that his mother told his crown prince. This suddenly made Zhang Zhiwei happy in his heart. His mother did not deceive him. He really has a crown prince. Apart from his parents and adoptive father, there is also a Taigong whom he has never met before. And look at the current situation. That Taigong seems very strong, very strong. Even the enemies around him who were forcing his parents to death all had their fear and courage scattered. Zhang Zhiwei is extremely curious. What exactly does that Taigong look like? Suddenly, someone noticed that what Abbess Jingxian was saying was not about her current strength, but about 20 years ago, and suddenly spoke in shock. This was only 20 years ago. If it's true as the people of Wudang say, that old man has been in seclusion for 20 years and hasn't died yet. And if he leaves today? What is the current strength? Heaven and humanity. Above. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present suddenly felt a piercing cold and shivering sensation behind their backs. And at this moment, a golden light suddenly appears again. Chapter 8. The Great Powers of the World Shake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Great Powers of the World Shake. When the golden sun rises to the east. The people of Wudang Mountain cannot open their eyes due to being in the front hall and being irradiated by golden light. I don't know what the external situation is. If they were to know what the outside world looked like, it would definitely be even more shocking. Because when the golden light appears, Wudang Mountain is like an earth dragon flipping over, with the surrounding earth and rocks crumbling and small dot scale collapsing. In the next moment, a golden light enveloped the entire peak of Wudang Mountain like a golden egg. Almost everyone can see the huge golden sun of Hunyuan on the mountaintop. And that's not all. At the moment when the golden sun formed, there seemed to be another burst of energy and a long dragon roaring on Wudang Mountain, and then a golden light suddenly pierced into the sky. The dense clouds were directly torn apart, and within 1,000 miles, there was a clear sky. After about 10 breaths, the soaring golden pillar slowly disappeared. What kind of martial arts can be achieved? This is simply a divine means. In Shaolin Temple, an old sweeper slowly lifted his head and stared in the direction of Wudang Mountain for a long time. Did he break through? Then continue to sweep the floor, as if ignoring, as if slightly wary. Kunlun Mountain is directly fried. Everyone is aware of the changes in Wudang Mountain. There can't be anyone else besides that old guy. Although Zhang Sanfeng is strong. But it hasn't reached that level yet. At least not yet, to the point where it can shake the world. Damn it, that old guy is still alive. Master, if it's really that one, should I temporarily avoid Kunlun Mountain? Do you think closing the mountain is useful? That old man is completely unreasonable. Even if the mountain is closed, he will force himself up. Unless it's our ancestors' move, who can stop that old guy? The Kunlun disciple was immediately overjoyed. Can our ancestors stop that one? Then he was hit on the forehead with a hammer. I really messed with him. Even our ancestors couldn't stop us. De Qin. A black and a white figure stood on the mountaintop, looking towards the central plains. Is this a breakthrough? I didn't expect that person in the central plains rumored to be still alive, and their strength has reached such a level. Seeing the expressionless expression in Bai Yi-Gainie's eyes, Wei Zhuang spoke in a deep voice. Have you ever hit him? Gainie shook his head. If we both take action together, I'm afraid neither of us will be his opponents. Perhaps. Even my master cannot do it. Wei Zhuang immediately thought of his master Guguzi. That mysterious and unpredictable existence. If even he is not a match for that person in Central Plains. What kind of person is needed to crush that person? In the dense forests of Chongshan. A few people sat around the mountain stream. Living in seclusion in these mountains, rivers, and dense forests, you, the leader of Chang's sect, are doing it leisurely. Ding Busi picked up the wine and drank it, laughing. Truly worthy of the word, Changle. Someone next to me is joking. The guild leader has been happy for a long time. As subordinates, we will suffer a lot. Everyone smiled but didn't care. But oh my god, you said how did you actually read the Tai Xian Jing from the poetry of the poet Immortal Bai? I followed your method several times and saw some fur. Where is the swordsmanship and moves you mentioned? The person next to me laughed again. Guild leader, that's a genius. You idiot in a stinky ditch must not be able to see it. A few people teased each other, creating a harmonious atmosphere. A golden light runs through heaven and earth. The location of several people is extremely far from Wudang Mountain. But there was still a gentle breeze sweeping over, causing ripples to appear on the table. The crowd, who had just smiled, had a big change in their faces at that moment. Heaven and man. Which top master made a breakthrough? Everyone turned around and looked strange. The golden light curse. I didn't read it wrong, did I? Has Zhang Zhiwei appeared again? And it seems to have broken through again. The leader of Chang's sect, Sherpa Tian, turned his head to look, his expression slightly solemn. Also speak up. It's strong again. It hasn't appeared in 20 years, and that senior has already reached this level. Ding Busi took a deep breath of air conditioning. That senior, he knows. The existence that once dominated the martial arts world. When that person left the mountain, the whole world was filled with booze. Even the leaders of several major sects and figures at the level of founding fathers should respectfully call out to Zhang Tianshi. It is enough to witness its terror. If that person is still alive, or even broke through again, then perhaps there will be another earthquake in this world. But I hope this is not true. Ding Busi took a deep breath and his eyes showed horror. But immediately, he looked at the stone breaking through the sky. How do you compare yourself to that senior? The stone shattered the sky and gave him a white glance. Is this a comparison? After a pause, Sherbatian stood up. But you can go and take a look. Overseas, on an unnamed island. A little old man was lost in thought as he gazed at the pillar of light in the Central Plains. This little old man may seem ordinary, but in reality, he is not a simple character. Although he lived on a deserted island, he stopped a series of invisible assassin organizations in the inland areas of the Central Plains, almost controlling the entire Central Plains at one point. In addition, he also taught invincible masters such as Lu Xiaofeng, Gong Jiu, and Beef Soup who were rampant in the world. As for the strength of this little old man. But he has never made a move. Go and inquire. After looking at it, the little old man turned to the person behind him and said. UNV Sword Aching, Emperor Shirtian, Guguzi, Yen 13. If that person really broke through, then now there might be another tough guy. The world is becoming increasingly complex. And this could also be the most difficult to deal with. The little old man squinted his eyes and said no more. The appearance of abnormal movements in Wudang Mountain. Causing the whole world to be shocked. Especially in the Central Plains. Here, Zhang Zhiwei's reputation is most widely spread among the older generation and major factions. Almost everyone sounded that. The once famous Wudang Mountain Heavenly Master. Most people cannot believe that Zhang Zhiwei is still alive, let alone that he has broken through again. That person was already terrifying, more than 20 years ago he was a celestial being. If this breaks through again, then he will truly be a living immortal. When I think of the terror of that old man's actions. Zhou Batong was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks. By the way, it seems like I heard that some people went up Wudang Mountain today for the dragon-slaying sword. That old guy happened to be born again. Hiss. Then there's some fun here. I don't know how that old man will do it. Chapter 9. The first man to break through heaven and man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The first man to break through heaven and man. Is that old guy still alive? The account for killing my 30,000 Mongolian elite soldiers back then hasn't been calculated yet. I thought the old guy was already dead, so I put this account on hold. Now that the Southern Song dynasty is on the brink of death, and this old man is once again born, is he going to take another action against me, Mongolia? The Mongolian Khan is furious. He remembered something from decades ago. If it weren't for Zhang Zhiwei's intervention, he would have destroyed a Mongolian heavenly man expert who was in charge of the formation, along with a crucial 30,000 elite soldiers. The Southern Song dynasty had long been annihilated by him. Mongolia has already taken control of the Central Plains. But it's better to still be alive, just to settle the old accounts. Next to him, the Mongolian national teacher showed a frightened expression. Khan, this is not very good, is it? After all, it is an existence at the level of heaven and humanity, and even this time it may have surpassed heaven and humanity, becoming the first one above heaven and humanity. It is difficult to find opponents in this world. If we really want to settle accounts with him, the cost is probably enormous. There's a sentence he didn't say. That was when Zhang Zhiwei was able to annihilate 30,000 elite soldiers. If there is a breakthrough, it may be able to eliminate more. This is no longer something that humans can do. The Mongolian national teacher hesitated for a moment before continuing. You're not unfamiliar with that old guy. He's lived for over 130 years now. We don't need to waste the body of the grassland boy, let's go bury that madman. The Mongolian national teacher did not speak directly. But his meaning is very clear. Zhang Zhiwei is very strong, but over 130. Let's endure for a while, that old guy might die. Why bother fighting hard? However, the Mongolian Khan clearly did not accept his suggestion. Don't say too much, get ready. Since that old guy has returned, I will settle the accounts with him back then. If those 30,000 elite soldiers hadn't died, the world would be mine. Why is it still like this now? The Mongolian national teacher had no choice but to retreat and leave. De Qin. Zhao Gao looked at the towering pillar of light, his expression inexplicable. To be able to reach this level, this person may have a unique foundation, aptitude, and luck, all of which are extraordinary beings in the world. I didn't expect there to be such a character. Behind Zhao Gao, the 6 swordsmen of the trap said in a deep voice. If we want to intervene somewhere, this person will definitely be the biggest obstacle. If it weren't for me 6 shooting at the same time, I'm afraid none of them would be his opponents. I didn't know you. Zhao Gao's strength was also an unknown presence in the Great Qin dynasty. A long time ago, he was able to control a huge assassination organization network spread throughout the 7 countries. Although he has never made a move, he is definitely not an ordinary person. Zhao Gao didn't answer. Just looking in the direction of Wudang. Is it in the martial arts world? Let the trap move. Take a good look at the news. If this kind of character cannot be controlled, then it will have to be destroyed. In the Yin-Yang family, a mysterious person hidden under strange attendants and masks slowly spoke up. Above heaven and humanity. Among humans, the mortal immortals. The land immortals. Da Qin has a trap. There is also a heavenly gate in the martial arts world. The Tianmen sect master looked towards Wudang Mountain with a visible expression of surprise. If you want to compare your age. The head of Tianmen sect, Emperor Tian, actually lived longer than Zhang Sanfeng and Zhang Zhiwei. He has already lived for 2,000 years. However, the difference is that the Tianmen sect leader was able to live for so long because he received phoenix blood. If it weren't for phoenix blood, he would just be an ordinary person. And Zhang Sanfeng and Zhang Zhiwei both relied on themselves, with the former living a hard life for over 100 years and the latter for an even more shocking 300 years. No external support. That would be considered a miracle. If this person really breaks through the realm of heaven and man, then he will be the first existence to break through the realm of heaven and man in the past century. Still above heaven and man in just 100 years. For 2,000 years, the head of the Tianmen sect has naturally seen many decision-making geniuses. Like a myth without a name. Like many experts in his Tianmen sect. But all of them put together, they are not as good as Zhang Zhiwei, who broke through the sky and humanity. Think of this. He suddenly felt a desire to go to Wudang Mountain. In the imperial palace of the southern Song dynasty. The last emperor of the dying country stood up. The emperor of the southern Song dynasty came to his place, and the entire southern Song dynasty can be said to be in jeopardy. There were many villains among the people, and they needed to be suppressed from time to time in various places. The Mongolian ministers were determined to kill all the Han people and launched a massive attack on the territory of the southern Song dynasty. Wherever they go, there are either mountains of corpses and corpses everywhere, or the screams of Han people being brutally killed. And the entire southern Song dynasty. Surprisingly, he had no fighting power against the Tartars from the north. Weak and helpless, with no way out. But at this moment, the emperor of the southern Song dynasty was like capturing a savior. Master Zhang. That should be Zhang Tianshi. Who else in the entire martial arts world could have such magnanimity except for Master Zhang? And the direction is exactly the direction of Wudang Mountain. That must be undoubtedly Master Zhang. There are many ministers below who show signs of doubt. I don't know who Zhang Tianshi is, as the emperor mentioned. After all, the court and the martial arts world are two separate worlds. Unless it is intentional attention, people in the court are generally not clear about the affairs of the martial arts world. Then a military aircraft minister stood up. Excited expression. Is it the Wudang Mountain Master Zhang who once destroyed 30,000 iron-armored elite cavalry alone? The person from the heavenly passage who has been missing for over 20 years. The emperor shook his head. I'm not sure. But besides Master Zhang, I can't think of anyone else. Anyway, I must send someone to Wudang Mountain. Stop it. Because now, perhaps only with the help of Zhang Tianshi and Tianren can we solve the great calamity of the Mongols in the north and save us from the southern Song dynasty amidst fire and water. With the emperor's orders. The court suddenly took action. Visible, since the appearance of the golden light in Wudang Mountain. Many people and forces have been alarmed. The long silent Jianghu was stirred up in an instant, and once again came to the Jianghu under one person. Chapter 10. Before the figure appears, no one present dares to. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Before the figure appears, everyone present dares to move. Living immortals. On Wudang Mountain. Another golden light appears in the front hall. But this time, Jin Guangfei is rising. But from top to bottom. But this does not affect the golden light covering the entire front hall. It's the golden light curse. That old man didn't die, and it seems to have broken through. Even at this moment, Master Kong Wen is somewhat frightened. No one knows when that terrifying guy will arrive. The most important thing is, how will that old man calculate this account? Back then, Zhang Sanfeng and Zhang Zhiwei only suffered a little injustice, and that old guy hit people from the entire sect. Now that we have forced the death of the two younger generations of Wudang, this is not a small injustice. Hear this sentence. Everyone's face turned pale. If the Holy Prince of Wudang really has the kind of temper they say, the consequences for them are simply unimaginable. You now know, did you ever think of such a situation before? I have already reminded you that besides the renowned master in Wudang, there is also a Grand Duke. If you don't believe us repeatedly, we can't help it either. Wudang disciple Song Jinxiao spoke up. Although I know that the person in the golden light is the Saint Taigong who has not appeared in Wudang for over 20 years. But Song Jinxiao couldn't be happy at all. Not only Song Jinxiao, but also other Wudang disciples. Because there are still 2 corpses lying in front of them. Even Zhang Sanfeng's face has never been the same as Yen. Now that my junior brother and siblings have died in Wudang, you can't even leave Wudang today. No one here dares to answer. He Changchong's face turned pale, as if someone had sprayed him with stomach juice, and his whole face was foul-smelling. The other people's faces didn't show any signs of improvement. After all, as Song Jinxiao said, people have reminded me countless times that there is still a Grand Duke in Wudang. Believe it or not. Many people hold grudges against people like He Changchong, but due to his respected identity, they dare not speak too openly. And at this moment, a blurry figure suddenly appeared in the golden light. It seems to be the source of that brilliant golden light. I recognize that guy who turned him into ash. What kind of saint? Clearly that old lunatic. The once frightened and incontinent Kunlun Mountain old woman shouted loudly. He Changchong quickly blocked the person's mouth. You still call us old lunatics, don't you think we'll die soon enough? The whole audience suddenly fell silent. That old lunatic must be angry. Now let's see how that old lunatic will solve this matter. Damn it, why did we get involved in this kind of thing? Yeah, I knew I wouldn't have come to Wudang to join in this fun. If that old lunatic also sees us as accomplices in forcing Zhang Zhiwei and his wife to death, then today we will be considered a failure. Many people present are actually just here to watch a play in Wudang. Now inexplicably involved in this matter. It's all immense regret. Many people curse at sects such as Kunlun and Shaolin in their hearts, but how could they deceive others and force Wudang Mountain? He even dragged them in, it's damn it. Now that a major disaster is looming, I can't even cry. Looking at the figure in the golden light, everyone felt an invisible pressure. No one even dares to speak up. I'm afraid that as soon as someone speaks, the person in the golden light will come directly in front of them. There was a long silence on site. Only Wudang disciples suddenly reacted and Qi Qilang bowed loudly. Wudang disciple Song Jinxiao, pay respects to the Grand Duke. Wudang disciple Yu Lianzhou, pay respects to the Grand Duke. In the arena, the resounding voices of Wudang disciples echoed. It is evident that everyone's face is as cold as frost, and no one has seen the joyful expression of the long-lost Taigong. This expression, in the eyes of other martial arts experts in the front hall, is just complaining to the person in the golden light. Complain that they forced the Zhang Zhiwei couple to death. Look at the figure in the golden light, it seems to have signs of moving. Zhang Sanfeng's face suddenly turned bitter. He is both happy and unhappy about this elder brother's departure from the border, and his heart is complicated. Because if that elder brother really leaves the level and sees that he can't even protect his disciple well, he will probably hit himself in anger. But with that older brother's temper, it's really possible that he would do this. You know, he's over 100 years old. If he's still being spanked, it's really however, in addition, he still hopes that Zhang Zhiwei can pass the level and reappear in the world from the bottom of his heart. Thinking of this, Zhang Sanfeng stood up and respectfully arched his hand. Brother, long time no see. This completely confirms the identity of the figure in the golden light. Many people were shocked and shocked. When I'm really hesitating what to do. Zhang Yuji also stood up and bowed to his adoptive father, the Lion King, in the distance outside the front hall, with the faint figure in the golden light. Grandson Zhang Yuji, pay respects to Taigong. Upon hearing Zhang Yuji's address, he Changchong widened his eyes. Are you calling yourself a grandson? You Zhang Yuji is at most a disciple. Although it was just a small matter, the parents of a disciple's grandson died, and the parents of a grandson died. That's a big difference. The most important thing is that, based on the rumored personality of Zhang Zhiwei, he would definitely happily accept this grandson. This undoubtedly adds another layer of responsibility to their guilt. The situation has already reached its extreme point without a solution. Now it's even worse. He Changchong is in a hurry. Others were also anxious, even the heads of several Shaolin monks were shining brightly, clearly covered in sweat. At this moment, the 5 elders of Kongtong hesitated and stood up. Kongtong Wulagwan Neng, I have met Master Zhang. Stop it. Today is Zhang Zhenren's centenary birthday banquet. Since our birthday gifts have already been delivered, we won't leave any more. There are still many things in the Kongtong sect that need to be dealt with. Farewell. The 5 elders of Kongtong made a gesture and then walked towards the door. The behavior of the 5 elders of Kongtong instantly made everyone find a savior. One after another imitated the 5 elders. Speak up. I've met Master Zhang, we'll leave now. Farewell. Farewell and farewell, you Wudang Taoist friends don't need to give it away. That's right, that's right. We'll stay soon. Everyone ignored the body lying on the ground and walked towards the door. The steps are surprisingly consistent. The faces of the Wudang people became even colder. Are these guys thinking about running now? But they didn't take any action either. Because all the 7 heroes of Wudang are aware that if the Grand Duke were to pass, even if Xiaofeng, Yanghua, and others were present, they would not be able to leave safely. Why do these people think they can leave? Sure enough. Just as the 5 elders of Kongtong hurriedly walked to the front hall. Just about to take a step forward. A golden light with a strong aura suddenly enveloped the entire front hall with a surging force. Then the 5 elders of Kongtong lifted their feet and got stuck in the last step of stepping out of the threshold. Where the golden light envelopes. Everyone was immobilized. Except for Wudang disciples. Then everyone couldn't even be shocked and they saw the distant golden light suddenly explode. A human-shaped golden light, like a blazing divine sun, suddenly came towards this place. Zhang Zhiwei has passed the level.